Welcome back to The Explainer. We've got a really packed lineup today across gaming, movies, and digital culture. But we actually need to start on a deeply somber note. The man you see here is Claude Guillemot, a literal titan of the gaming industry. And, well, this week the entire community was just rocked by the sudden tragic news of his passing. So before we get into the rest of the news, let's just take a moment to really look at the immense legacy he leaves behind. It is absolutely fascinating to look back at just how foundational Claude was to the games we're all playing today. I mean, back in 1986, he and his four brothers founded Ubisoft. And while he was mostly handling the operation side of things rather than, direct game development, his influence was just massive. He also ran the Guillemot Corporation, so he oversaw huge peripheral brands like Thrustmaster and Hercules. But tragically, French media reported that the 69-year-old entrepreneur died on June 19th. He was in a twin-engine Cessna 421 light aircraft that crashed near the Le Boule airfield. It was a crash that also claimed the life of an instructor from Rennes. He was actually just on his way to an aviators meeting.
Well, the reaction from the gaming community over on DTF was pretty immediate and honestly deeply divided. On one hand, you had this massive outpouring of genuine grief. People were just shocked by the sudden loss, leaving all these heartfelt condolences and broken heart emojis. But then you simultaneously had the internet just being the internet. Some users instantly defaulted to this really dark humor, ironically critiquing the notoriously difficult airplane controls in Ubisoft games. It's kind of this stark reminder of how digital communities process real-world tragedy, It's often this jarring mix of profound sadness right alongside cynical deflection.
All right, let's shift gears a bit. Section 1, controversial corporate decisions. So picture this. You buy a game to play locally on your couch with a friend. Simple, right? Well, not anymore. The community recently realized that to play the Halo remake in local co-op on a PlayStation 5, you don't just need the game. Nope, you are literally required to have an active PS Plus subscription and link a Microsoft account to play offline in the exact same room. The friction here between what we as players actually expect and the reality of these modern corporate walled gardens is just staggering.
And trust me, players are not staying quiet about this one. One user on the forums totally hit the nail on the head, saying the crazy conspiracy theory that major publishers abandoned local co-op because they earned less money just stopped being a crazy conspiracy theory. When publishers force you into online subscriptions for offline features, it completely validates all that player cynicism. It makes the audience feel like, well, we aren't customers anymore. We're just data points waiting to be monetized at every single turn.
And you know that feeling of a total corporate disconnect? It extends right into game design too. Take Zenless Zone Zero, or ZZZ. Over the last 2 years, longtime fans have pointed out this drastic and kind of depressing shift. That original artistic integrity and cohesive style, gone. Fans are loudly complaining that it's just been replaced by lazy, generic fan service cliches. One player even noted that compared to the first season, the content now feels exclusively catered to a highly specific, fan service-hungry demographic, completely ditching the unique identity that drew everyone in to begin with. It's like a textbook case of chasing short-term engagement and throwing long-term artistic vision right out the window. Moving right along. Section 2, box office successes and surprises. $300 million. That is the worldwide box office gross for the movie Obsession. And what makes that number so completely staggering is that it's 400 times its original budget. 400. To put that into perspective, that is an unbelievable return on investment. And get this, it hasn't even opened in several major international markets yet. So from a purely financial standpoint, it is an undisputed monumental triumph. But here's where it gets really fascinating. The community reaction is completely contradicting that financial success. Look at this highly upvoted comment. Can someone explain what's so great about the movie? Looked at it, usual cringe and nonsense squared. Viewers are tearing it apart, calling the character behaviors absurd, the movements cartoonish, and the plot totally derivative. So why does this matter? Well, it highlights this massive disconnect we're seeing. A movie can be critically panned by highly vocal online communities as absolute cringe, and yet simultaneously print money at the global box office. And speaking of fierce cinematic division, the community totally reignited a debate over director Christopher Nolan this week. It is so polarized. On one side, you've got viewers calling him terribly overrated, literally pointing to The Dark Knight Rises as schizophrenic absurdity with heroic pathos. But then flip to the other side, and his defenders are just as passionate. They argue his box office numbers should be even higher. They're calling Tenet the best action movie of recent years, and even taking shots at the Avatar franchise for being repetitive, arguing that Nolan at least delivers something completely unique every single time. Meanwhile, we've got some drama brewing in Marvel territory. Actress Famke Janssen just came out and publicly stated that Marvel made a, quote, mistake by not inviting her back to play Jean Grey in the upcoming Avengers film, especially since a bunch of her old X-Men colleagues are coming back. The community's response? Absolute peak internet cynicism. They were basically joking like, hey, don't worry, Marvel will for sure call you for the next movie once this current one inevitably flops. All right, let's wrap things up with Section 3, Gaming Nostalgia and the Past. First up, a super quick rapid fire of how the past is bleeding into the present right now. Assassin's Creed fans are absolutely buzzing because the name Desmond Miles mysteriously popped up in new Animus data files. That is fueling some heavy rumors of a first game remake. Over in Star Citizen, the community is already debating the absolute best ship builds for the year 2026. And hey, if you've been holding out on Cyberpunk 2077, it just hit a massive record-breaking 70% discount on the store. But you know, true nostalgia requires preservation, and the lengths people will go for it, it's incredible. There was this wild discussion on Reddit that went totally viral, where foreign users admitted they are actively learning the Russian language. Why? Specifically so they can navigate, search, and download rare, out-of-print digital media from the famous Russian torrent site, RuTracker. I mean, they are literally learning a brand new alphabet just to access digital history. And the local community is loving this. As one user proudly pointed out, RuTracker has long been on the global stage. It is known abroad. It just perfectly shows how the desire to preserve and access older digital content completely transcends borders and language barriers. It's like this giant underground library serving the entire world. Speaking of preservation, a user shared an incredible discovery recently. They actually stumbled upon a fully functioning retro computer club just hidden away in an industrial zone in Omsk. And we aren't just talking about a couple of old PCs here. This place literally has physical VHS tapes lying around. It is an absolute functioning time capsule straight back to the 90s and early 2000s LAN party culture. But finding a time capsule and actually living in it are two very different things. We all kind of romanticize the charm of the D-past, right? Playing Counter-Strike 1.4 or Half-Life Deathmatch in a dimly lit, smoky computer club. But the modern reality? One user totally admitted that while they loved the idea of the past, they were sitting there playing the latest Horizon game with full RTX ray tracing, using a specialized program just to sync up a PS5 DualSense controller to their PC. They realized that, actually, every time they boot up an old game, it loses just a little more of its charm compared to all these modern technological comforts. Which brings us to the ultimate question I want to leave you with today. When we look at all these corporate mandates, the shifting art styles, and these massive leaps in technology, has modern gaming completely lost the magic and charm of the past? Or are we simply blinded by a nostalgia for a time that wasn't actually better, just simpler? Think about your own gaming library and let that question sink in. That wraps up our explainer for today. Thank you so much for learning with me, and I'll see you next time as we decode the next wave of industry news.